Okay, we are live. I wanted to run through some of the recent sort of film and show news that we've gotten this week. I want to keep it concise and not get off on weird tangents, but I do want to check to make sure the stream is working. However, okay, cool. Looks like it's working. So, the I think the first topic I want to cover is the whole Ray Star Wars news thing, and I'm gonna be approaching this off the cuff, so to speak, but that we're getting a new Star Wars movie, but it's going to be this Rey sequel, something or another. Basically, she's going to have a Jedi Academy. I think 15 years after the events of the ninth movie. I think my comments on this is why, who is asking for this movie is probably my initial reaction. Um, the sequel trilogy, it's debatable who likes it, right? Definitely divisive, I would say, and lost unity as it went along. I think The Force Awakens, a lot of people were on board with that movie at the end of it. I I liked it enough. I had my reservations about it, but I understand if people liked it. The Last Jedi, very, very divisive for a number of reasons, especially for the treatment of the legacy characters. Luke obviously treated very poorly in that film. Mark Hamill's even discussed how he didn't like the direction for Luke. I don't think anyone liked the direction for Luke in that movie. And so you can also see the box office results for Star Wars stuff just go like this as we got the different movies. Force Awakens, $2 billion, right? But then The Last Jedi, like 1.2 billion, and then I think Rise of Skywalker was like $1 billion, right? And then of course Solo was a bomb. Solo failed at the box office despite I think Solo is a good movie. I think it was a victim of what had happened in 2017 with The Last Jedi. I think that was very unfortunate for that movie because I actually kind of liked it. And then rewatching it later, I was like, this wasn't bad. Was it a like great Star Wars movie? No, I don't think so. But it wasn't a bad Star Wars movie at all. Um, Rogue One, great. I love Rogue One's a great Star Wars movie. I rank that one probably above like Episode Two, in my opinion. I really like Rogue One. Not that I don't like Episode Two. I like Episode Two as well. I like the prequels, but I rank Rogue One pretty high. But The Last Jedi, I think, just well, you lost so many fans. They felt so burned by that movie. And the Rise of Skywalker, can you even blame J.J. Abrams at that point? I mean, it was just him trying to scrap something together from what Ryan Johnson had completely destroyed. And I know that some people were like, "Oh, Last Jedi was good. It was subversive. It had twists." And it's like, no, it's dumb. It doesn't even work in the Star Wars universe, and that's just objectively true. They broke so many rules. I mean, fuel on ships. What are you talking about? That's nonsense. It never happened in Star Wars, and so I think they lost a lot of people with that sequel trilogy. Even if they've tried to unite people with the Mandalorian, which that seems like even if they've tried to unite people with the Mandalorian, it seems that it seems that people have kind of soured on that, unfortunately. So, like I said, some sort of movie with Rey, 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker, where she has a Jedi Academy. I don't think anyone cares about that because they already showed that Luke failed with this Jedi Academy um, in the Last Jedi and the Force Awakens, and then Rey's able to pull it off, right? It just seems dumb. It just doesn't make sense. And so there's a reason why that they're doing this movie, and the reason is called Kathleen Kennedy. Rey is her embodiment of like her dream of what she thinks Star Wars should be embodied into one person and sort of her power fantasy in a way. and that is Rey. And that sequel trilogy is about Rey. Really, it's not really about Skywalker's, the Skywalker family. And so that is like Kathleen Kennedy embodied in a character as Rey. And so she's not going to let it die. She's not going. She's going to go, oh, they all made $1 billion. What are you talking about? It's like, yeah, well, that was. I mean, Rise of Skywalker came out in 2019. The Star Wars landscape is completely different now. Unfortunately, not a lot of people care about Star Wars, which is very, very sad to see. I don't want these things to fail, but you kind of get what you're asking for when it comes to this stuff. And so that's why we're getting this movie. I think it's going to be just one movie. But they've announced stuff. I think this was an official announcement, but they've done a lot of official announcements, and then none of these projects have gone through. Remember Taika Waititi's movie? We haven't gotten that yet. The Game of Thrones writers were going to get a movie. Still hasn't happened, right? Kevin Feige was going to get a series. It doesn't happen. Hasn't happened, right? Basically, the only thing that happened is Mandalorian and then some other series. But Solo definitely scared them in terms of what they think Star Wars can do at the box office. Then Rise of Skywalker did fine, especially comparatively to now. That's actually a strong box office performance. If you think about the late 2010s kind of being this very inflated period of box office performance, I think if a Star Wars movie made $1 billion today, that would be like a big victory for them. But for then, it was a disappointment. And so they know that if they just put out any Star Wars movie, it probably would not be successful. And so that is sort of the thought process for them right now. But I would not be interested in such a movie. I don't think I would go watch it other than maybe to cover it in this sort of critical sense. But I mean, as a fan, I don't care. I don't consider 7, 8, and 9 canon films, in my opinion. All this stuff, all this Disney stuff, I don't consider it canon. And I know people maybe will be upset by that, especially when it comes to Mandalorian. But 1 through 6, Rogue One, and Solo, to me, I think that's canon. Everything else, I think, is just kind of like fan fiction at this point. The Kenobi series, are you kidding me? That's not canon. What? That thing is nonsense. I mean, and I am doing a review on Kenobi. I've watched the series twice now, and I'm going to put a review out on Kenobi and voice my opinions on that because there's a lot to be said there. Andor, super freaking boring. I tried the first episode, super boring. Mandalorian, a lot of people like Mandalorian. That one was boring to me. And I think it acts like almost autonomously enough from the rest of the Star Wars world that I would be okay with. Like, oh, that's canon. Okay, maybe Mandalorian's canon. But Book of Boba Fett survives the pits or whatever. I mean, you're just how many more dead characters are they gonna bring back and then make a show out of? Darth Maul. They did it with Darth Maul. They did it with Boba Fett. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. And so I don't care about this movie. I don't think it needs to be made. I think they should probably start over and go back to the drawing board with Disney Star Wars. And speaking of starting over, so Warner Brothers has announced, this is an announcement that we saw, or not an announcement, but it's sort of leaks. Warner Brothers has presumed that this is going to happen. They're going to do an HBO Max through Warner Brothers series of the Harry Potter books, essentially redoing the movies, right? 1 through 8, redoing all the years. But each year is now a season of TV. This is an absolutely terrible idea for so many reasons. And I mean, like I said, the reason this is terrible is threefold. One, the movies are already so good. They're already so good. And I know if you're not my age or maybe a little older where you have the Harry Potter nostalgia, like we grew up with like these characters as we saw them in the movies. And so many people read the books and they thought like, wow, they did such a good job with the movies. That was just like the books. So many people are satisfied with the movies. I mean, they still hold up visually, aside from like a few special effects things, which if you did like a digital remaster, that would be gone in an instant. Those problems would go away. So that's not really a problem. It's perfectly casted. I mean, I've read some of the books. I haven't read all the Harry Potter books. Okay, I'm gonna be honest about that. But from what I have read, and then my family, like they all have read all the books. From their point of view, everything's perfectly casted, and I agree. What they do cut, I think makes sense. I think it works for the movies. I know, especially like 4, 5, 6, 7, a lot had to be cut from those books to make the movies, and you gotta make sacrifices somewhere, and I think it worked fine. In the first few movies, they were able to get basically the whole book in there, so they're beloved by the fan base. They were perfectly casted. they still hold up. So what is the point of the remake? And it has something to do with the dollar signs, right? Um, although I don't know, it's not even going to be in theaters. You're not even going to make money off the box office. You're going to spend a ton of money. I mean, if you're going to do 8 seasons, that's going to cost. I mean, at the minimum, 500 million. I mean, Amazon spent $1 billion on their Lord of the Rings piece of trash, which we probably need to talk about at some point. That thing's gonna be super expensive. And you tell me you're gonna make RO the ROI is gonna be there, Warner Brothers? I don't think so. I think people are gonna hate this. Not to mention all of the issues that we're going to get with modern adaptations, including, swapping the different ethnicities of the characters for no reason. And I like to preface this saying I don't diversity is fine in movies. That's not my problem. If you have different people from different backgrounds, totally cool. Do it in an original story though. Don't retcon stuff from a different story, right? Hogwarts is in England, right? There's a certain ethnicity that is in England, and it was written that way by J.K. Rowling. Okay, that's just how it was. And then, the movies were made a certain way, right, to represent those characters. And so, if they do a modern remake, there's going to be ethnic swapping. It's going to happen. Maybe not in itself the worst thing, but they're going to retcon different sexualities of different characters. They've already done this with the Dumbledore series. They already did it. So that stuff's going to happen. They're going to try to inject modern messaging into it. We know this. We've seen this already. We've seen how this game plays out. And so they're going to do that. Whoever they cast as these characters are not going to be able to meet up to the standards of how the previous Harry Potter cast was casted. It's just not going to, then how can you compare? Who's going to be the new Dumbledore? Who's good? Who are you going to cast as the new Harry? It's someone we don't know, obviously, but he's just constantly going to be compared, right? And it's almost like that Solo thing all over again. Well, Alden Ehrenreich was getting compared to Harrison Ford. I thought Alden Ehrenreich did really well, actually. I thought he was a good Solo, but he's not Han Solo. Just like this new Harry Potter is not going to be the new Harry Potter, right? And then there's going to be all this pressure from the original cast to comment on the new show, and there's going to be drama related to that, and it's pointless. You don't need this, okay? People love the original Harry Potter. Just leave it be. Come up with something on your own, I think. But I know Warner Brothers, they're sitting with this digital or this idea or the rights to Harry Potter, and they're going, well, we tried the Fantastic Beasts trilogy. People didn't really like that. It was maybe the first movie, a lot of people are on board, but the second, third movies they didn't do so well. So people didn't like that. People don't like the Cursed Child, really. We've already made all the movies, so what can we do with this property now, right? We did a video game. There was some controversy around that, but it actually helped the game. It did really well. But they're like, we've got this amazing property. They probably still rake in the cash from like product sales and toys and things like that. I mean, the intellectual property. I mean, J.K. Rowling sits on a giant stack of cash. I think we need to realize that. Yeah, she catches fire in the media now and then for things she says that aren't really even that controversial 20 years ago. But she's doing fine, guys. She's like one of the richest women in the world or something. Like she sits on a giant pile of cash. So she's doing fine. So Warner Brothers goes, how can we sit on our own pile of cash? And the best idea they can come up with is, well, we'll redo it, but we'll do each book as a season. I think that is a less a dumb idea than remaking all the movies, the dumbest possible idea. Because at least you're trying to do something new with it. But I just see there's no gain from that. There's nothing you're going to gain. You're just going to piss more people off. You're just going to upset more people, just like the Rings of Power. You saw how it happened to the Rings of Power? It went down in a blaze of freaking glory. This last fall, right? I mean, the Lord of the Rings fans torched that thing. And it lost tons of money, and the viewership was abysmal because it was a bad show. What do you think is going to happen with, the Harry Potter universe, right? And there is a universe where I think they do it right. There is an alternate dimension. There's a multiverse where they do it justice. But like I think in the words of Doctor Strange, that's one out of whatever 300 something million, right? That I think every other multiverse, every other timeline, they completely botch this sucker and they do all the things that I said they're going to do because that's what they continue to do. Now, a lot of people are mentioning, well, HBO Max does a better job with their series than, let's say, Disney. I think if Disney owned Harry Potter and they announced this, I'd be like, if this is guaranteed train wreck, like guaranteed this would be terrible. But of course, it's Warner Brothers. Really, it's not really HBO Max. But they do have a bit more credibility, maybe with these intellectual properties, and so you could say, okay, maybe there's a chance that this won't be absolutely terrible. But still, I think it has all those issues I discussed, and like all the cons, like almost no positives, in my opinion. So that's that on the Harry Potter announcement. So we're gonna go Star Wars. Star Wars. We're gonna go over that. What I also want to talk about is some of the recent box office performances. I'm gonna do some shorts on this as well. But here's why I think one movie I want to talk about is Air. Why is Air not doing well at the box office? And I also think doing well is a relative term. So Air, I think, has made. I've got a box office list here pulled up. Okay, it's not even top 10, but it's made like 60 million or something worldwide and had like a $90 million budget. We have to remember that Air was going to be an Amazon Prime film, so we have to kind of factor in that any sort of bonus money they're making at the box office is a little more extra cash than Amazon maybe thought they were getting. It was supposed to be added to the catalog, maybe be a prestige film. Ben Affleck's films tend to do well critically. Of course, added that budget is marketing and things that, they had a Super Bowl ad, right? That's expensive. Marketing that wouldn't have been a part of the cost if it would have just dropped on Prime, right? So there is some added cost there. But I think I wouldn't call it an absolute failure for making the money it did. But it comes back to what I said in my review. Why is Air R that totally wrecked it at the box office? Because think about who Air is targeting, right? Air, 1980s nostalgia. Michael Jordan, okay, that's 80s, 90s. That's Gen X for nostalgia all the way. Okay, a bit of boomer nostalgia as well. Okay, targeting those people. Those people have kids, or if not young kids, maybe teens. I don't know. A lot of those people probably have kids, or even people who are 30, 35, and like Michael Jordan. They have younger kids. And so if they're coming around a couple weekends ago and they're going, okay, oh, this Air movie looks cool. It's about Michael Jordan. It's about shoes. Okay, maybe we could go to this. Oh, this is R. Maybe not. Oh, look, Mario movie. I can bring all my entire family to that. I think a lot of that happened, and then I think a lot of people went, okay, this is R. Oh, but my kids can go see the D&D movie. And so I think that happened to a degree. I think like I said, a bit of that happened. So that's why I had that lower performance, because now it's R. So you're talking about targeting 50 to 70-year-olds, when they're not bringing any kids along. So that's extra tickets not being sold to go to the movie. So you just, getting a lot of couples essentially. And it's like, I just think the marketing plan was not there. Like I said, it's supposed to drop on Prime. So if that was the intention, this is the movie they had, and they were like, we're just going to do our best with it with a theatrical release, then fine. But I think if you wanted this movie to commercially do well, you could have thought this through a little better. Especially in Air, there's particularly one scene where I think if they cut the or heavily edit the dialogue of one scene where the Matt Damon character is talking to the agent, where it's just incredibly vulgar. And you could say that was necessary in the film, fine. But what I'm saying is, if you want to make this PG-13, you just heavily edit that scene, and you cut out some f bombs over in a few different spots, and the film is PG-13. And I think it would have doubled its box office returns, if I'm being honest. So interesting decision there. But I wanted to comment on that. Another film I wanted to comment on was the D&D movie, and I really like the D&D movie. There's so many positives about it, but why did they release it now? I mean, you're sandwiched between John Wick, you had Quantumania, you had Creed, and then after it, you had the Mario movie. I mean, you were competing with so many moviegoers. So I think it made back its budget, which is still probably a loss. We'll see how much legs it ends up having. But I think a lot of people that first weekend were like, "Oh, D&D, great! It did well. It knocked John Wick off the top spot," which I like John Wick, but it had been there for a while. And so D&D movie was going well. But then the next weekend, everyone was going to go see the Mario movie, right? I mean, that's what happened. So it was an interesting time to release it, and maybe that will give it a bit of a questionable future in terms of, are we going to get additional films? We'll have to see, right? But that was a bit of a mistake there. So a couple mistake. I just wonder if I can kind of put these things together. I wonder what these marketing execs at these film studios are thinking sometimes. It's very interesting. I know that they got a lot on their plate, but it's like, I could see that Babylon was going to absolutely bomb. I remember seeing a trailer for that in early or when I went to see Violent Night, I saw a trailer for Babylon, and I was like, "Oh, this movie's gonna do terrible. Who's gonna go see this piece of trash?" I know some people are like, "Oh, it's hidden gem, hidden classic," and it's like, not really. It's a pile of trash, and it performed like a pile of trash. I could have easily guessed that that was gonna happen, and then it did, and I was just like, okay, where are the fancy marketing people with the degrees figuring this out? And then Air, it's like, okay, I like Air, but why is it rated R? And then it doesn't do as well. Or D&D was great, but why is it released now? Right? Just I have questions about this stuff. Mario movie's cleaning up. It's got 353 domestic. It's gonna reach a billion pretty soon. I'm just looking at the list over here. Um, John Wick did really well. Obviously, it's been out for a month, so it's losing some legs at this point. And then Shazam completely bombed. Unfortunately, that was one I did not see. I do want to see it though. I do like Zachary Levi quite a bit. But with them refreshing, and that moves me into the Flash point here, which I want to discuss because Shazam, right? The fact that they're rebooting the universe, that definitely hurt Shazam. Let's just be honest about that. Also, the first Shazam movie was actually kind of a moderate success and wasn't a giant box office success. And that came out during like the height of like if you accidentally released a superhero movie, oh shoot, we weren't supposed to release that. Oh, we made a billion. Okay, like everything was bringing in $1 billion. Freaking Captain Marvel brought in $1 billion in what was it, February 2019 or early March 2019, right? So things were doing great, and Shazam brought in like $350 million, which is like it was good compared to the budget, but it wasn't like this amazing performance or anything. And so I was like, Shazam's got $150 million budget. Like I don't see this making $800 million, and then it didn't, and especially with um, James Gunn in January talking about how they're rebooting the universe, and it's essentially happening with the Flash movie. So that's the only one that really means anything for the DC universe going forward. And so what do I expect this Flash movie to do, box office wise? I think a lot of people would not be that invested, although there are a lot of Flash fans out there. If it weren't for the Michael Keaton baiting, let's be honest about that. I think that with him being thrown in there, I even saw Ben Affleck maybe he's also as Batman's going to be in the Flash movie, and I always liked Ben Affleck as Batman. And so the fact that it's basically going to be Flash No Way Home, I think is going to definitely help it out quite a bit. And so I think it could do really really well because I was sitting in a trailer like last month for John Wick or something, and then the Flash movie trailer went up, and my dad wasn't really paying attention, and then Michael Keaton popped on screen. He's like, "Oh, he's Michael Keaton's gonna be in it. All right, I'm gonna go to the Flash." And I think there's a lot of people in that boat. Whether is it cheap? Maybe sure. Is it smart? Yeah, it is. It is. It's pretty smart. It's like Spider-Man No Way Home intelligence-wise, right? That's why I'm calling it Flash No Way Home. And I also humorously in my trailer reaction called Indiana Jones No Way Home because that seems to be the only way people can do things now is just like travel through different timelines and see different timelines of characters. They've admitted they're out of ideas. We're just admitting we're going to go back to the old ideas, which is kind of funny to me. But yeah, I think Flash will do really well because of that. But it'll close out that universe. How it's going to happen, I don't exactly know. He'll probably just end up resetting the timeline to some degree, which is kind of sad. I actually have a little nostalgia for the DCEU. I really thought it could have been something good. It was just so poorly managed, unfortunately. I do like the Snyder Cut. I watched the Snyder Cut, all 75,000 hours of it, and it was good. I think it actually set something up. Was it bloated? Sure, it's a Zack Snyder movie. Of course, it's bloated. Of course, it's like ridiculous and over the top to an extent. But I liked it. It was better than the Joss Whedon cut we got, which I'm not really even blaming Joss Whedon for it, but you know, it is what it is, right? I thought there was so much potential in that original DCEU, but just so poorly managed. But I'm not optimistic for this DCU either. I watched James Gunn's announcement. I went, I don't care about any of these projects. Creature Commando? What? Who cares about Creature Commando? I mean, the Authority, okay, the boys, but DC. I it just none of it attracted me. Why can't DC just go? We're gonna put out like two movies. No, none of this freaking sideshow crap. None of this Disney Plus branding garbage. Okay, We're gonna put out a Superman movie, a regular freaking Superman movie, a regular Batman movie, and then like a regular Wonder Woman or Flash or something. I don't know. Pick another DC character that you like, and we're gonna do that year one. That's it. Just do that, and I think that would work perfectly fine. But it's like, no, we're gonna do the Brave and the Bold. Batman's not even in the name. I don't even know what the heck the Brave and the Bold is. Superman, but legacy, so he's older. Like, I don't know. And then we're gonna do, and then Creature Commandos, and then the Authority, and then some Swamp Thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, I don't understand. So unfortunately, I'm not optimistic. The DCU and MCU have significant issues right now, and so that I'll finish off with that segment there. DCU, James Gunn's new universe, I'm not excited for. I know some people are. They're like, great, this obscure comic character is finally coming to life. That's good for you. But I think in terms of how it actually performs with people, we're gonna have to wait and see, man. And then MCU, allegedly Jonathan Majors is dropped by his management company. I mean, talk just disaster for Disney, just disaster. And I'm sad about that. I liked Jonathan Majors. I thought he was cool in Ant-Man. I liked him in Loki, which the review is coming for later. Um, but just like that one, I can't blame on Disney. That's not their fault that popped out of nowhere. Um, and so, okay, our big bad villain, like imagine in 2016, Josh Brolin gets in trouble, and he can't play Thanos, and it's like, okay, what do we do now? That's what this is like. They're trying to build up Kang, and they don't even have Jonathan Majors, and it's like, oh no, what are we gonna do? And then MCU got James Gunn with, let's just call it the Gunverse, because it is the Gunverse, where it's just like 7 different versions of Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's like, I don't know, man. What are we gonna get? I mean, it's interesting because I've heard that the test screens for Flash, people enjoyed it, but the test screens for Aquaman are just like garbage apparently. So it'll be interesting to see what the last remnants of the DCEU look like. And then for the rest of this year, Marvel, you've got okay, we got Guardians 3. That's gonna do well. Because that's a legacy, that's a carryover from like phase 2 and stuff. And people love Guardians. I think that'll do a billion or more. I think that one will do really well. And Chris Pratt seems to be box office magic. You know, as much as he's controversy, Chris Pratt, right? Every movie he's in rakes in the cash. Name one that doesn't. All the Guardians movies, the Lego movies, now Mario movie. Literally, I mean, any movie he's in is like printing money. I mean, you just have to admit that, right? At this point. And so I think that movie will do really well. Not just because of Chris Pratt, obviously, people love the Guardians. But then you got the Marvels, which has been pushed back, I think, approximately 35,000 times to November. We're doing Freaky Friday, but with superheroes. Like, what is this? So that is concerning for Marvel at the very least. We're getting Loki season 2, which I'm semi interested in because I thought Loki season 1 was interesting at least. I watched it last month. It was good enough. So we'll see what Loki 2 season 2 has to offer. I think there's like one more season of another show. It keeps changing, so I can't keep track of all these things. But yeah, very murky futures for both, and very murky future for Star Wars, as I mentioned before. So it'll be very interesting what these companies are able to pull out of their hat, and then a murky future for Harry Potter. What's Indiana Jones? Is this it, right? So it's very interesting. It'll be a very interesting next few years to see how these things pan out. I'm very interested for it. So that's where I'm going to cut the stream. Um, it's been fun talking about some topics. I got some reviews coming out, especially looking to get a Last Kingdom review, Loki, Kenobi, some of the things on the list. I'll get to it. But anyways, I'll see you guys later.